Hi, welcome to SBR Forum Videos. We are continuing our coverage of the NBA playoffs with Jordan Sharp, who gave us profitable advice during the regular season for the TNT games. It's the Thursday after the first week of the playoffs, so each first-round series is about 2 or 3 games in. Jordan, thanks for being back with us.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, let's start out with the biggest news. Derrick Rose out for the playoffs. The first game that he's out, the Bulls get killed at home. What's your prognosis for the Bulls? Are they done?
I mean, it depends on what your definition of done is. If your definition of done is that they done in the aspect of are they going to win a championship, then yes, they're done. They're not going to win a championship without Derrick Rose. For this series, I think you can definitely find value. Like, for instance, tonight's game where they're playing in Philadelphia for Game 3. They're 2-point underdogs, and I think you have to take a look at that on the money line and on the spread as well. But Pete, I don't think even if they do get past Philadelphia, I don't think they're going to get past whoever they play next. Most likely, I think Boston.
All right, okay, and then Miami's killing the Knicks in the first 2 games, and the Game 3 is tonight. The Knicks are about a 5-point home underdog. What's your prognosis ATS for the rest of the series?
I mean, the Knicks are just not going up to any sort of standard. I mean, it just culminates with Amari Stoudemire punching a fire extinguisher window. I mean, that just never gets old to me. I cannot understand what could have been going through his mind to do that. I mean,
he was probably just thinking like, "Fuck, I can't believe we lost." You know?
I mean, I think the Knicks just don't really believe in themselves at this point, and I just really can't see them covering that much against the Heat. I mean, they're 5-point underdogs here in this spot for the game on the Thursday evening, but the Knicks are just that team that is capable of covering and beating the Heat here at home because this is a big game here in Madison Square Garden. But at the same time, I cannot be confident to tell any of you guys out there watching this to take the Knicks at 5 points because I would just really feel like it's a coin flip at this point. And I think ATS and in this series, I think they're done.
And then let's see the Clippers in Memphis. You know, we were really high on Memphis when we previewed this series, and I did take Memphis on the series, and I think they're still going to pull it out. But that was some kind of comeback by the Clippers. What do you make of that in Game 1?
Game 1, I think, Pete, it was crazy. I think your theory on them having Blake Griffin and Chris Paul came to fruition on that amazing fourth quarter comeback of 20+ points by the Clippers in Game 1 on the home floor of the Grizzlies at Beale Street. But at the same time, we saw the Grizzlies play a pretty solid game and pretty much had control of Game 2 throughout the entirety, with the exception of a few lead changes early in the first half. I think you're right. I think the Grizzlies will at the very least come out tied in their 2 games after their 2 games in Los Angeles, and then I think they'll win 2 in a row. I think the Grizzlies, your Grizzlies bet is safe. I think they're going to win 5 and 6.
All right, and then what do you make of the OKC-Dallas series? I mean, Oklahoma City did win, both of their games, but Dallas covered again. So now what are they, like 18-1 in their last 19 playoff games or something like that? I mean, Dallas is just a playoff covering machine. Now, though, they're a favorite, and they're probably going to be a favorite in Game 4 as well. What do you make of Dallas as a favorite at home against Oklahoma City?
I think it's going to be another situation much similar to Clippers and Grizzlies. I think that it's going to be very interesting, and you have to see what goes on in Game 3. Dallas, you're right, they started as 1.5 favorites, and they've moved to -3. Yeah. However, the public is on them pretty heavily. I think they're at like 59%. If I'm leaning right now, I think I do have a pick on the Thunder +3. I'm not feeling terribly confident about it, but I think either or, depending on what happens in this game, just to see how the Thunder react to being on the road for the first time in the postseason. Yeah. I think Game 4 is going to be very live for some action, both live betting and on the Thunder possibly as another underdog in that situation.
Okay, cool. And then just wrapping it up, the Spurs continued their absolute domination against Utah first 2 games at home. Now they're going into Utah. You think it continues there?
Yeah, I don't think there's any way the Utah Jazz win a game in this series.
Really? Wow.
I know Utah is a very tough place to play. Don't get me wrong. And Energy Solutions Arena has historically, throughout a long time, been a very tough place to play, no matter what. I mean, they're just unfortunate they ran up against a juggernaut, and that's all that really matters. I mean, you and I told you how high I were on the Spurs. You were high on the Spurs before the playoffs started. I mean, the Spurs now, especially now with just one more team that like a contender from the Bulls that just dropped out, there's just one less contender for them to worry about. And I think in the West, I think there's only 2 teams they have to worry about in the West, and now there's only 1 team they have to worry about in the East. I think the Spurs, if you can still get action on the Spurs to win the title, I think you still have to take that bet.
All right, well, thanks so much for all this input once again, Jordan, and we will talk to you next week.
All right, Pete. We'll see you guys next week.